Hello, everybody, and welcome. It's great to have you us today in this webinar, which is the first out of our series of monthly webinars we're going to hold this year. Logz.io's customer success team is always at your service, and we would like to make sure you guys get training and support you need to utilize Logz.io's platform to the fullest and be successful. I'm Boaz Arbel, Head of Customer Success at Logz.io, and with me today, we have Thiago Del Rios, Customer Success Engineer here in Boston. Hi, Thiago.
Hey there.
And Josh Schnitzer, Second-Tier Support Specialist in Tel Aviv, Israel. Thiago will walk you today through the ways to parse your data. We'll show you how to visualize it and create your own dashboard. As always, Josh is waiting for any questions you may have. So please go ahead and send your questions to us as they come. I want to wish you all a successful 2018, and I look forward to meeting you in the field. Thiago, please take it away from here.
Okay, thanks Boaz for the introduction. Hey everyone, once again, I'm Thiago. I'm part of the customer success team here. First, I would like to thank you all for joining us today. We hope that today's webinar will help you getting more from Logz.io. And also from your logs as well. If you're new to the solution, this is going to be a good opportunity to learn some best practices. And if you're using, if you have been using us for a while, this will be a chance to confirm your setup for success as well. Now let's cover an agenda that we have for you all. So let's look further as Boaz mentioned. First thing we're gonna do is actually go through some log shipping and parsing. We wanna make sure that as you're shipping us your data, we are using best practice on that. It will make you successful in the future. And then we're gonna tie everything together with some Kibana basics where we dive into some searches and visualizations. And we will leave about 5 or so minutes at the end to answer some questions. However, for the Q&A, feel free to send us your questions during the webinar. As mentioned, we will be covering most frequently asked questions at the end. But if we are unable to cover all the questions today, we will definitely follow up with everyone at the end of this webinar and make sure that everyone get the answers that they were looking for. Lastly, before we dive into this tool, I would like to share some information on how you can get help from us. So one of the big reasons we are here today is to help you all being successful. So let's make sure you are able to find your answers right away. So there are 3 ways to get support with us today. First one is chat. As you can see, we put a little icon right here on the corner. If you log into your account, you should be able to see that as well. That's a way to get a hold of our support team. Secondly, you can email us as help@logz.io. And lastly, we are making improvements to our self-support page, which is support.logz.io. Go there, search for frequently asked questions, and we hope to see you to help you out. Our support team is available 24/7, and we are ready to assist you with all the questions you may have, especially if you learn something new here and you would like to learn more details about it. All right, let's dive in. First off, we're going to start with some log shipping and parsing. There are 4 basic questions we're going to be covering today. First one, what is the best method used for shipping? So from there, that's a very common question our support team hear every day, especially with people who are starting with a solution. And our answer is, well, it really depends. It depends on the technologies that you're using. And whenever choosing a shipping method for your environment, you will most likely never find the one shipping method that works best all the time. That's why we offer 4 major ways to ship logs our way. So let's cover some of them with you today and go a little bit in details on how you can do it differently. So the first one is from code itself. So you will see that we have a library options. So basically what you can do is put an appender into your code and adding this. The great thing about using from the code itself is that support the stack trace. Most appenders will do. More parse data out of the box, which enriches the data that you have. Plus, whenever you deploy the code, the logs will be shipped to Logz.io with no extra needed configuration. So if you do have access to the code, we definitely recommend you looking into that. But let's say you don't have access to the code. What's the option that you have? From there, we go into using shippers. You do not have, let's say, as mentioned, you don't have control of the code itself, and you want to look for other options. The great thing about shippers is that it can be used in multiple sources. You actually also handle multiple types and patterns as well. So if you have an environment that is there's a great variety there, this might be a good option for you. We do recommend FileBeat. We are a big fan of it. I will be covering FileBeat a little bit more into this webinar. But the great thing about FileBeat is that we have a configuration wizard. We will touch upon that a little bit. Works in all environments, regardless of the environment you have, Linux, Macs, and Windows as well. There's a variety of ways you can set up. We have a single port configuration with that, which is the 5015. It compresses and secures your data, and it's easy to troubleshoot. So why would you use a different shipper? So why do we have other options? Well, maybe you're already familiar with something else and you would prefer yourself, and we want to make sure we give you those options as well. And lastly, some network device data can be hard to tap into. So our best option here might be our syslogs and FluentD. We have common questions around that as well. So if you need more details on that, definitely reach out to support and we'll be happy to assist you. From there, we go into Docker shippers. We have built this for in case you have containerized the options that we have spoken above, and Dockers would actually be a very good option for you. It's easily configurable in a Docker environment, and it listens on a standard out of all your Dockers on the host, and it forwards them to Logz.io. So simple configuration. There is a caveat to using Dockers. It currently does not handle multi-line, so maybe using a shipper will be a best option for you. And we cannot filter what is sent to Logz.io either. From there, we go into some AWS. A lot of our clients are using AWS within their environment. If you want to be able to tap into your environment and AWS and understand what's happening there, we do have this as an option. The bucket is yours, and you can keep it forever on your side, so it's a good way for storage on your own. It's ideal for servers that write consistently and in consistent log format. And once again, if you are using AWS as part of your environment, that would definitely be the ideal for you. Cool. Now, let's go back into the Logshipping page on the topics we're going to be covering. Next is, what is type and why do I need it? So the reason we're going to be covering this is because there's a very common mistake with a lot of people using Logz.io today. If we dive into the tool and I go into Logshipping, as I said, we're going to go into FileBeat since it's our preferred method here, easily configurable. If we scroll down, what you're going to see is that we have this field right here in a configuration, which is called type. What is type? Type is a logical field in Elasticsearch that is used to separate different documents from one to the other. In a nutshell, Logz.io has been designed around this field type, so properly configuring this will definitely give you a lot of benefits. I'm just going to give you an example of working with some clients. I have worked with some of our users who are generically using a name and maybe shipping us this as just one name. So what happens is all your logs on our end will look like it's the same thing. By properly setting up the types as you're shipping it to us, you should always choose type by log format and not source. And by doing this, it's easier to maintain your environment and it gives you less room for error. Our parsing mechanism will work best. Our billing page will give you how much data you're sending to us by log type. Our alerts are built around this. Our Elk apps, which we might dive into a little bit into this webinar, and also our insights. So as we keep developing this tool, we are building it around this topic, in particularly type. So properly configuring this will be important. I will dive in details in Kibana how this comes into play, but please keep that in mind. All right. One last topic on this in particularly, now it's parsing. So you set up your shipping, you configure type, and everything is coming to Logz.io. Now, what do I need? Why do I need to parse my data? And how can I parse my data? So parsing basically is the process of breaking down your log message into smaller chunks of data and placing them in its own specific name fields by following a set of rules. Well, so what does that actually mean? The advantage of actually parsing your data is that today your logs are sent to us. It's sent as one string, one message. And what we want to do is break down that information and put it in its own buckets. By doing so, it optimizes your experience with the tool and makes it easy for you to be able to filter out this. So you will be able to easily display, as I mentioned, filter your data with the click of a button, which we will show you shortly. You'll be able to create visualizations around this and also set up alerts. Those are some of the advantages you will get from parsing your data. And as our VP of product once put it, in the fields of log analytics, the key factor determining how easy it is to analyze the log data is parsing. So I cannot emphasize enough how much more we actually been able to do for our clients by properly parsing. So how can I parse my data? Well, let's look into how the solution can do for you. First, we do have some pre-configured parsing mechanisms already built into Logz.io. And we will share this with everybody, but if you're shipping any of those log types our way, if you configure type as one of those, what it's going to be done is that we're going to enrich your data and parse them automatically for you. So that's one mechanism that you actually can use to parse your data. It's pre-configured. You don't have to do any work. Just ship us and we'll do the work for you. Secondly, you may want to parse the information yourself. So let's say you're sending us some of your own data, not a problem. Let's parse it. Let's actually go through the data parsing wizard just a little bit. I'm not going to dive in too much, but I want to show you guys what you guys have as a capability. Basically, through here, what you choose is the log type that you want to parse. As you can see, mine is called my firewall. From there, you actually have the option to choose the log lines you actually want to parse. On my end, I already have chosen some of them, so I actually have some sample logs. In your end, you can go there, give some sample logs. And below here, you will choose the parsing method. Please keep in mind, this is under beta, so we only offer Grok today. We will have some more information coming soon, other mechanisms for you to parse it, but you would choose Grok, and from here, you would actually type the Grok pattern. So let me go through how this pattern actually works. So Grok has its own mechanism, its own patterns. You will need to learn that on your own. And by using a certain pattern of writing, what you can do by the simple log line that I have, what I'm doing there is breaking it down into its own fields. So as you can see here, I start with timestamp, and I'm grabbing this part of the log line and I'm putting into the field called the field name called time, and from there and so on and so forth. So I have what's left here, which is not parsed today. So what I could do is actually keep parsing my data by, for example, just keep typing what's there, and then from there I could go further into the mechanics of the parsing itself. IPv4 equals client IP, for example. And then from there, what you're going to see once I actually write, looks like I made a small mistake here. Let me just correct myself. IPv4, there you go. There was a small mistake I made on the writing, but as you can see now, what I've done, I actually parsed out one more piece of data, which I'm actually putting the client, this IP address or DST IP into its own field, which I called client IP. The naming convention is really up to you, and you can do it from there. So let me stop here. This piece of the webinar can be a little complex, and let's say you don't feel comfortable grokking yourself. As I mentioned, we have 3 options. So maybe the third option that we have for you is the most ideal. Lastly, we'll do it for you. Whoa. So what do I mean that we will do it for you? As I mentioned, you can easily sync up with our support team. Easy way is by clicking on this little button. and you can start a conversation with us. Send us a quick message, say, hey guys, I need some help with some parsing. Here's the sample data that I have. Here's how I want this to be parsed, and we'll do it for you. Our support team will give you more details of what's needed on their end. But why? I'm gonna quote Josh right now, who is the guy on the other line with me, and he always say, why do the heavy lifting yourself? We'll do it for you. As you can see, you actually have to learn something new. We offer this as a service, so let us do the work for you. We'll do it. Don't have to worry about it. Cool. So let me just go back into the slide and let me quickly recap this before we go into the next part of the presentation. So I've worked with other users who did not follow the best practice I shared so far. Maybe that's your case as well. And you may feel you're getting enough from Logz.io, but you're hindering yourself. What I can tell you, we can get a lot more from the solution today by following those practices. So I recommend you looking at Logz.io configuration today with Logz.io, and definitely diving into this, and we'll be happy to help. As one of the offers we're going to be offering for the webinar today, at the end you will be able to give us your opinion on today's webinar, and the offer is for you to ask us for some onboarding or training as well. We'll jump on a call with you and reveal this information with you all. Excellent. So let's keep moving. All right, next step. We're gonna go into some Kibana basics. We're gonna dive into some searches and visualizations as well. All right, so this is what Kibana looks like. But let me take a step back and tell you a quick story, or give you a scenario here as we try to recreate. So what you see here is an alert from Logz.io. So the alert tells me that I had some excessive 500, I had excessive 500 errors, and the errors have exceeded the allowed threshold. And I now need to dive into my data and try to determine what's the URL and the client IP on this. All right, so how would I go into Logz.io and dive into that data? So now I'm brand new to Logz.io. I come in and I'm like, all right, what do I do next? Well, first thing I'm gonna do is just extend our time frame to 24 hours. I wanna see what has happened in the last 24 hours and dive into my data. So if I'm new to Logz.io, I come in and I look at all of this. I see there's a search option, so maybe I actually wanna start doing some searches. I got 500 errors, so maybe I would start with that. And I just type 500. What we're gonna be doing now is trying to drill down into this data and try to find an error 500 within my log line. Okay, this is a very common, this is just a simple search we're doing. But as you can see right here on the top, I have 761 hits. And as I look through my data, I see some 500 that potentially are the errors I'm looking for, but I see a quick alert here, which is creating some dirty information in the middle. So the hits that I'm seeing is not necessarily everything that I need, or there's a lot more than what I need there. So how can I drill down into this data, especially after doing the parsing? And this will be the focus on the search itself. By properly following the parsing mechanism and creating properly type mechanism within the data, we can drill down and filter the information out. I know that error is coming from our Apache logs. So the first thing I'm gonna do is start with type. And I'm gonna say type is Apache access, which is the type of log that I have. By doing so, what I'm doing is filtering down the logs that I have coming through Logz.io and populating them on the available fields that I have. And only thing that I see here now are Apache logs. So what this does for me now is drill down into this information so I know exactly what I'm seeing. From there, as I said, let's work a little backwards. What would I do next? I have a bunch of fields, and where is this 500 actually sitting? Let me expand the log line right now. And by drilling down, I see that a 200 error is actually coming from response. So what I could do now is add another filter. And I would do response is 500. And I'm going to save that. Now I'm actually filtering even more information down, which will give me better hits. And by doing so, one of the things you will see is that response is a popular field. By clicking the add button right there, I'm actually adding that into the table, so I can scroll down and see that everything is a 500 error. But this is an excess of 500s, not necessarily just a 500. So I could actually click on this. I'm going to edit this field and say I want to look this in between 500 and 599. By saving this, what's going to do is going to update my logs, and by scrolling down, as you can see, not only 500 errors will show up, I will actually get some other errors with this as well, as you can see right here, 504. Great, now I'm really drilling down into the 500 errors. But let's say I'm only looking for 500 and 504. What is another option that I have? I say response is one of, or for example, 500 and 504. This way, what I'm doing is telling Logz.io to filter the information based on what I'm looking. So using the filtering mechanism is a lot more intuitive. And the reason I can do this, once again, is because my data is parsed. Apache Access, as mentioned before, is a pre-configured parse mechanism. So by doing this, I'm able to drill down into the information. So let's go back into the in-between. What I want to do, since I'm new to the solution, I'm going to save this. And every time this error happens, I can come here and just drill down into this information. So what I'm going to do is click here, save. I'm going to call a webinar and say responses 500s. Excellent. Now, because of my data being parsed, it becomes very simple. And from there, you can usually use the search now to actually use words or whatever to what you're looking for and drill down further into your information. So hopefully this was very clear to you guys how to using the filter mechanism after your data is parsed. So as we mentioned, parsing can take a little bit of work in the beginning, but by doing so, you're going to be improving the capabilities of the people who are new and actually simplifying the way to use the solution. But now as you can see, I'm looking at my data in the last 24 hours. I see about 730 hits. And it's easy to scroll down and just look at this data, but I cannot easily tell a story just by looking at log lines. And that's where visualizations come into play. So let's create a visualization based on this right now. Next step, if we click on visualize, I'm gonna click on the little plus here to create a new visualization. And you have a variety of visualization types you can use. For this one in particularly, I'm gonna use a vertical bar. By doing so, what I'm going to do is, as I showed you before, I saved that search. I'm going to use the webinar response 500s, which will narrow down the information I'm further looking into. And what I want to do is create a visual of what's happening in the background. So the first x-axis I'm going to be using is a date histogram. And by clicking on play, what I see right now is in the last 24 hours, I have a timestamp of 30 minutes that's showing here, and each one of those lines basically signifies how many logs are coming through on the time frame. And as I mentioned, it's 500 errors only. I'm going to add a set bucket from there, and I'm going to quickly split the series, and I'm going to split that by the field, and once again is responses where my errors actually are. So as you can see now, I see 500 errors and 504 errors as well. But right now, the way this visualization looks, it's nice. I see a spike, but I would love to kind of see this a little bit separately. So by making some changes, I can change the chart to a line or an area. So for example, if I was to change to an area directly from here, I see that, but I see this is stacked. I'm going to change it to normal. As you can see now, it separates the data in this visual graph, and it can even put a line. And maybe this is a little more appealing to the eye. You decide, and from there, now I go back into my data. I see my 500 errors, and the count exactly the way I want it. Let me save this. Cool. Now I have a good response 500s, and I have a visual of what's happening. The great thing of a visual is that it can tell you the story with that specific field. However, what if I want to compare the Apache Access data with one another? As one thing that I showed you in the alert is that I want to drill down into the 500 errors and understand the client IPs and URLs that were used that caused this error. So how can I do that? What I can do is tie all visualizations together within a dashboard. But before I do that, what I'd like to share with you is one more visualization that can be created based on enrichment of the data, which is the mapping. So I'm going to use the coordinate map. I'm actually this time going to use the customer index, which is my index, and I'm going to choose the GeoIP, which is enriched data for Apache. And by playing that, what it does is show me the world map with where connections are coming from. I'm going to save that as well, just so we can add that to the webinar as a nice visual. Excellent. So now I created 2 visuals so I can better understand my data, and let's put everything together in a dashboard. Where the dashboard comes into play is that I can put a bunch of visuals together and drill down into that information as needed. So let's add the visuals that I created. So first, I have a webinar response and a geolocation. And from there, I can actually just click save. As you can see, they tied it together. Going back into my visualizations, let me just check one more thing. And what I would like to do is Apache. There you go. This is what I need. Let me go back into that again. So what I'm going to do is I actually had some pre-configured visualizations and added a different naming convention, but let me actually correct that. So what I'm going to do is put responses, geolocation. I'm going to add the client IP and URL that I had created, and I'm going to put that saved search as well. And by saving this, I now have a visualization of my Apache logs all together. I have my 500 response errors. I have client IPs that are coming through, the URL, a little map, and below I see the log lines that are relevant to this. As we mentioned before, by using the filtering mechanism, I could easily just click on information and drill down. I see there is a little spike right here, so maybe I want to further look into the 404s. I can click on the 504, I'm sorry, and click on the filter. But as you can see, it creates a little filtering mechanism of 504. What this does, it changes the whole dashboard to update and actually follow that information. So it drills down into the search itself, the URLs that's given to me, the client IP, and so on and so forth. And by the nice thing about creating a visual like this is that you can also drill down into the time frame by a click and drag. It changes the time frame within my environment, where it updates all of the visualizations that I currently have and updating the log lines as well. So as you can see, by properly parsing your data, properly putting into types, you can easily visualize and create dashboards to understand what's happening within your environment, so you actually can tell a good story. So I'm gonna wrap up right now on the presentation. We wanna take some questions from all of you guys. I believe I covered a lot. So if you feel you're not getting this capability from Logz.io today, once again, we will be offering something on our recap that will give you the opportunity to request some training or onboarding from Logz.io. So if something like this would actually bring a lot of benefit to you guys, definitely reach out to us and I'll be happy to cover. So now I'm gonna go back to Boaz here with me. We're gonna sync up with Josh and take some of the questions you guys have for us. All right, guys.
All right, I think you deserve a sip of water. Great job, Thiago, great job. So we do have a couple of questions here flying in. What are the advantages of using FileBeat?
Excellent, that's a really good question. As I mentioned, I was gonna cover a little bit in FileBeat, so let's dive into the log shipping itself. If I go into log shipping and choose FileBeat, as I mentioned during the webinar, is that we do have a configuration wizard, which will simplify everything for you. So by clicking on this, you'll be able to create a quick setup. We'll create a little file for you. You can use your log types. You will be able to use multi-line. And as mentioned as well, FileBeat works in our environments. Use a single port to ship logs to us, and compress and secure your data. Plus, it's extremely easy to troubleshoot with us. So definitely consider FileBeat if it is an option within your environment.
All right, thanks. Okay, someone asked, can I import my logs configuration into Logz.io?
Okay, really good question. Currently, you cannot import the Logstash configuration, but you can forward it to our support at help@Logz.io, and they will be happy to implement the configuration for you. If you want to write your own grok, you can use our data parsing feature by hovering over the Logshipping as mentioned, and choose the data parsing option that shows there. So you can do it. Just give us a shout. As I mentioned, click on the little icon right here in the corner. It can be a way to communicate with our support team as well.
All right, thanks. Another question we got is, how does Logz.io handle multi-line?
All right, so this is a very common question and something I run with a lot of clients while working with them. So your log shipping method must be able to handle multi-line logs as a single log entry. You can use a log shipper like FileBeat, for example. Even by clicking here, as you can see, we have a multi-line option right there. Where you click on it, you have to write a regex pattern. If you're not comfortable doing this, our support team will also help you with that. And our appenders support this as well. So best option for multi-line, use a log shipper or an appender.
Okay, great. Before I move to the next question, I just want to encourage you over the line. Please send us any question you have. If we don't have time to answer it right now, we'll get back to you and we'll answer. So the next question we have is it possible to create a visualization from a new search without saving the search?
Okay, really good question. Let's dive into the tool. I believe I covered that, but it might have been a little bit fast. So when creating a new visualization, you would go to Visualize, click on Create a New Visual, and just choose whatever visualization you want to use. From there, you can do a visualization from a new search or from a saved search. So basically, you're always going to have this option right here, Logz.io customer index. What that means is that we're going to grab your whole index and create a visualization from there. And as I showed you the mechanism to filter in your data and so on and so forth, you can use that once within the visualization by adding filters or by creating a search itself and then splitting your data as necessary. So for example, I could come here, I am using the whole index, but by aggregating the stuff, let's say by response as well, what I would do is still using, oh, I'm sorry, so this is where I want to go, and erase that, and there you go. I would actually look into my whole index, which before I was filtering 500 errors. At this time, I'm not filtering anything. So it's grabbing the whole index, and then I'm aggregating by the term that I chose, which is the field itself, which is response.
Okay, great, Thiago, thanks. Another question we have is, if I manually break up my data into the fields I need when shipping to Logz.io, do I still have to go through the data parsing process?
That's a really good question. I have worked with other customers that are doing the same thing, and the answer is no. You do not need to go through the parsing process if you do it on your own side. Simply ship as the logs as a JSON, and it will index it for you. So if you know how to do it, or again, if you can parse the data on your end, if you prefer to do that, you can do that as well. So no, you do not have to go through the parsing wizard as long as the mechanics that you're using actually do work.
Mm-hmm. Okay, maybe one before last. Hey guys, what's your recommendation for Kubernetes?
Okay, there are several ways to ship data from Kubernetes. You can use FluentD, which is built in, and use FileBeat, and we'll be happy to help you on our chat in setting it up. So FluentD works really well with Kubernetes, but if you have any questions, definitely reach out to our support team, and we'll be happy to give you details on how to do it.
Okay, do you want to go through this or should we adjourn that?
Use logs, identify issues using machine learning. So the question is, how do we use logs and then identify issues using machine learning? So we do have a feature that we didn't cover in today's webinar. Today was more to get into the basics and talking about log shipping good practices using type and also parsing your data, which will help you getting more from the logs. But Logz.io long term is that we not only want to help you shipping logs our way and getting information that you are looking for, we want to raise some things to your awareness. So there's way too many logs. Just looking at this, for example, is 140 logs. So for me to go through this on my own alone and try to identify something, it can be troublesome. So what Logz.io has built is actually insights, which will dive into your data and try to understand what's happening in the background. Today would not be the ideal opportunity to dive into this more. I don't want to just talk lightly on this. If this is something you guys would like to hear more about it, we can definitely have a webinar on this, and we're definitely looking forward to some feedback you guys can give us and really the direction that would make the most sense for you guys moving forward. And we'll be happy to cover anything that would be ideal for you guys. All right, boss, I think this will do it. So I'll get back to you.
Okay, Thiago, thank you very much. That was fascinating. And thanks, Josh, for being online and getting all the questions and articulating the answers. Thank you very much. So, folks, that's it for today. We are at the top of the session's time here. And we'd like to wrap it up. I hope you all learned something new today. We really love to get any feedback and any comments you have at help@Logz.io. But anyways, we'll be sending you a summary email soon. We will include a link to the recording so you can get back to that and watch it again and again and share it with other users. So please feel free to do that. We will be holding another webinar in a month, so mid-February, stay tuned. And you're all welcome to let us know if there are any specific topics and features you want us to focus on and talk about. It's really yours. It's your platform. We're just servicing you with that. So please make sure to book your free training session or a complete onboarding journey if you'd like with our customer success engineers today. Don't waste your time. And we look forward to meeting you again soon. So until we meet again, please take care of yourself and your logs and let us know if we can be